Hello, and welcome to another one of our video snapshot interviews. My name is Colleen Flynn, and I'm the co-executive director at Build Healthy Places Network. We are a national center fostering multi-sector collaboration across healthcare, public health, and community development to accelerate community-centered investments for healthy and prosperous communities. We are focusing our attention to the vital role community development financial institutions play, sometimes referred to as CDFIs, in building healthy and prosperous communities. I'm super excited to introduce our guest today, Donna Gambrell, President and CEO of Appalachian Community Capital. Welcome, Donna.
Thank you, Colleen. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's great to see you. Donna, your career journey in the world of community development financial institutions is quite remarkable. You were the longest serving director of the CDFI fund, navigating both the Bush and Obama administrations, and notably the first African American woman to hold that position. Many viewers might be unfamiliar with CDFIs in simple terms. What exactly are community development financial institutions? What purpose do they serve? And what was the core mission of the CDFI fund that you led?
All great questions to start off with, Colleen. And again, thank you for the invitation. I love talking about CDFIs. And even though it's not a familiar term for a lot of people, I think the work that's done by community development financial institutions is so important. So what are they? They are specialized financial institutions or community lenders who are specifically focused on working in and supporting low-income communities, low-income populations, those communities that have been left outside of the financial mainstream, working with those communities to make sure that they have the tools, the resources, and other information to achieve economic self-sufficiency. So there are about 1,500 CDFIs all across the country, and there are all different types of CDFIs. So no CDFI is quite the same as the other, but there are four categories. There are CDFI banks, CDFI credit unions, CDFI loan funds, and these are primarily nonprofit organizations, as well as CDFI venture capital funds. And they're located, Colleen, all across the country. They're in the Plain States. They're on the West and East Coast. They're in Appalachia, in the Delta, along the Texas border, in the Midwest. There's at least one CDFI in every state of the country, and many more in many cases that are just doing some extraordinary work every day. They're focused on affordable housing, on small business financing, on commercial real estate, on health and education. And so much of the work that they do is organically grown. They don't come into a community and say, oh, we know what's good for you. Let us show you all of our tricks of the trade. No, they're waiting for the community to actually come forward and clarify their priorities, really talk about what the community needs are. And then they work with the community to fill those gaps where there is need and supporting those communities so that the communities grow and thrive. So that's one section. That's just the CDFIs. And then you have the CDFI Fund, which is a government office that sits within the U.S. Department of Treasury. It was formed in 1994. And it was created primarily to create this kind of economic opportunity for those communities that I just talked about. Rather than working with them directly, with the communities directly, they work with CDFIs. So they provide CDFIs, loans, investments, and other resources that are then passed on to those. And I'm sorry, I forgot one, loans, investments, grants that are then passed on to the communities. And those CDFIs, again, are using that funding not only to build the capacity of their own organizations, but also to build the capacity, help build the capacity of communities as well.
Thanks, Donna, for sharing the robust system of CDFIs and the fund and just the depth and also the idea that their work is very community centered and driven. So going on to Appalachian Community Capital, I'm sure you've witnessed firsthand the impact of CDFIs. Could you share a specific story or example of how CDFIs acted as the crucial first responders, particularly in the unique context of the Appalachian region?
Yes, absolutely. So, as you know, Colleen, the Appalachian region is pretty large. It's 13 states, 26 million people, 423 counties. And so within that region, we have members, 41 members, boots on the ground, that are working closely in those communities. For Appalachian Community Capital, our niche is small business lending. And so we work with those CDFI members who are in the various states. And I think the best example, recent example, there's so many, but I think the best recent example that I can think of is how we have been first responders is at Appalachian Community Capital. Right after Hurricane Helene struck 5 southeastern Appalachian states, we went into action right away. We started contacting our CDFIs, trying to get an assessment of the damage and really what the needs were. And we rely so heavily on that network. And we started with our focus being in Western North Carolina because that's where a lot of the severe damage was. People lost not only their businesses, but some lost their businesses and their homes. And we immediately started working with those CDFIs, identifying the needs, but also really coming up with strategies on outreach because a lot of folks were displaced. And so you couldn't just call on the phone because there was no internet connectivity. People were actually going door to door to look for those customers, look for those who had been impacted by the storm. ACC was fortunate enough to receive an initial grant funding from the Dogwood Health Trust, which is a foundation located in Western North Carolina. And we started with $20 million that they wanted to come through ACC and then be dispersed to those small business owners based on information that was coming from those small business owners about how they were affected by the storm. So the foundation was so pleased with how quickly we got money out the door, was able to really track the not only the use of the funds, but the impact that those grants were having. And the grants ranged from anywhere from 25,000 up to $50,000, but powerful stories about people who really saw so much of that financial infusion as a lifeline for their businesses and to be able to keep those businesses operating, to keep employees still working in those businesses, to buy new equipment, for example. Dogwood Health Trust was so pleased with the work that we did initially that North Carolina State came in and added an additional $30 million. Excuse me. We also got funding from the Duke Endowment of $5 million. So by the end of the day, we had a bit more than $55 million that we were able to disperse, put out the door quickly, just in a matter of months. All of that funding has gone out. There are at least 1,500 small businesses or more that received grants. And again, enough to give them some hope for people to say we probably needed a lot more than this given the damage, but it was the beginning steps on a pathway to restoration and recovery.
Mm, that's so powerful to hear, Donna. Just the idea that CDFIs really can be nimble and be those
Hmm.
first responders and already have a lot of the knowledge base to be able to prioritize where the money should go and to kind of quickly fit into the needs of the community. So thanks for sharing all of that. Um, so in your extensive experience, what do you believe is the single most important contribution that CDFIs make to building healthy and thriving communities?
So there are a couple of analogies first that I'll talk about, Colleen, because I love the way CDFIs have been described. One of my colleagues said, Donna, CDFIs are kind of like the on-ramp. And traditional banks are like the highway. And what we're trying to do is get people from the on ramp onto the highway. In essence, really starting with those customers that may not have strong credit histories yet, or are looking for ways in which they can improve their credit profiles or business planning, starting with perhaps small loans and really building on that with the idea that at some point they're going to move into even larger relationships with banks that might provide even more services and products and services that even a CDFI can't provide. So we don't see ourselves as competitors with the banks, but really complementary partners. So that certainly is one way in which I've embrace the description. Another one is that these CDFIs are like capillaries, if you will. And so they spread out and they do all of this fantastic work. And I think one of the things that I would say that they do best of all is that they have an innate sense of providing high touch customer service to their customers. They are in touch with those customers. They're following up when they're sensing a trouble. They're actually talking, providing one-on-one coaching, modifying the terms of an agreement so that that customer can continue to move forward in their own aspirations and dreams as well.
Mm, that's really powerful. I guess this kind of dovetails into the next question. So let's imagine a community that suddenly lost the support of CDFIs. What tangible challenges and losses would that community likely face, do you think?
Yeah, the first one that comes to mind is that once you have no CDFIs in a community, you have no organization that actually provides access to affordable credit. And that's
Mm,
what we all need, right? We don't want to be, so locked into a financial contract that the interest rates are sky high in a product that we can't afford. And I think what CDFIs do is that they meet the customer where they are and say what is actually what does affordable mean to you, and really work to make sure that those products and services meet that definition of affordability. So without those CDFIs in the community, I think you lose that access to affordable capital. You lose access to business advisory services, which CDFIs are required to provide as part of their certification that they receive from the Department of Treasury. And then I think you lose one critical part of an ecosystem that is so dependent on collaboration, cooperation, partnership. CDFIs are partnering with economic development specialists, with local financial institutions, with foundations, and they know their customers. And so without that variable, I think the community is at a real loss.
mhm. Yeah, from what you're describing, it's like CDFIs are that bridge, right, to other
Hmm.
sectors too, that open up
Correct.
access to community organizations, local folks on the ground, and that bridge would break down considerably.
Exactly.
Um, and then just based on your years of dedication to this field, which we are very grateful for, what is your most urgent call to action for those who want to support and strengthen CDFIs right now?
Great question. It's a great final question is a call for action. I'm not going to say how many years I've been doing this, Colleen, but I can tell you that in those years, there have been ebbs and flows always as it relates to CDFIs and the CDFI industry. And now, in particular, it's time for people to really uplift the work that's happening, being done by CDFIs in communities that oftentimes have not had the pathway that will allow them to grow and to thrive. And so it's our duty, I think, to make sure that we are educating congressional leaders, for example, and really talking about the work that CDFIs do, not only in a general sense, but in that congressional leader's own district. I think many would be surprised at how many projects are actually underway or have been completed that contributed to the economic stability and growth of that community. So I say get out, talk, don't be afraid to highlight and shine a light on the work that CDFIs are doing. The CDFI fund is a critical part of actually helping CDFIs maintain that capacity so that they can support underserved communities. And both entities, both CDFIs and the CDFI fund, that support is needed in both areas.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I think that's a great note to end on, and just wanted to share. Thank you so much for sharing your valuable time with us today,
Thank
Donna.
you.
Your insights are truly illuminating, and we at Build Healthy Places Network are really committed to following the impact of the work of Appalachian Community Capital, all the CDFIs, as you mentioned, around the country, and sharing your vital contributions to our network. So thank you so much, Donna.
Thank you, Colleen, and thank you for all the work that you all are doing as well. So critical. That is such a critical mission that you have as well.